Good day everyone. So today we're gonna show you how we made our custom Godzilla Ultima from the Netflix anime series Godzilla Singular Point. So just a forewarning, if you haven't seen the Netflix series yet, I do suggest that you stop right here, watch it first before you come back and watch the rest of the video, because this is gonna contain spoilers from that series and we don't want to spoil anyone. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start looking at the figure. So here what we're doing is we're basically painting the eyes. So the reason why we did that first is gonna be set really deep on the figure, so it would be difficult to paint it afterwards. So it's better that you finalize the eyes first and then go ahead and resculpt the rest of the figure. So speaking of the figure, the base figure that we're using here is a NECA Godzilla 2003. And the plan here is we're gonna keep as much of the articulation from that figure as possible. So now what we're doing is we're doing the cheeks, and then after we did like a rough sketch or a rough sculpt of that, what we're doing now is we're removing the old nose, because we're gonna replace it with the one that looks like Godzilla Ultima. So here we're already sculpting the bridge of the nose, and as you can see, we're also doing part of the upper cheek of Godzilla Ultima as well. So just a quick rundown of this build. Basically, what happened was we planned on doing this figure before the Netflix anime came out. So we really had a little of the source material that we could get, since we don't the series hasn't started yet when we were starting on this figure. And then eventually, even SH Monster Arts hasn't announced that they were gonna make a Godzilla Ultima figure as well. So we really had just a little study material to work with. So it's basically the pictures that we're seeing on the internet, and some of the merchandise that were coming out. So we really don't have like a storyboard to work with, unlike SH Monster Arts. So when SH Monster Arts finally released their figure, so we had at least more details to work with, more especially the ones on the lower area of Godzilla, the ones on the tail, the ones on the feet. So yeah, that's how it all happened. So anyway, going back to our figure, what happened here is we removed the tusks. We removed the fangs from Godzilla, and we basically built the tusks. And now what we're doing is we're working on the upper lip of Godzilla. And what you would probably see here is we're using a mix of different types of sculpting tools. Some are finer metal pieces, and then some are those thicker wooden pieces that we use to sculpt the figure. So it's really good if you could find most of their sculpting tools first, so that it will help you sculpt all of those little details on the figure as well. So here what we're doing is, again, we're basically refining how we did the eyelids and the cheek area of Godzilla Ultima. So now we're basically sculpting and refining the cheek area and the upper lip of Godzilla Ultima. So if you have seen the design already, Godzilla Ultima is basically a thick Godzilla design. So it's quite unique in a way, because of that respect. It's really thick. So here what we're doing now is basically we're putting an outline on what we want to do with the figure. So we outlined where the spines will be on the neck area and how it connects to the head. Also, that little circle near the mouth is basically what will be our false jaw. So as you know, this design has a very big mouth. So the NECA 2003 Godzilla doesn't really have that much of a mouth opening to work with. So what we did is we kind of extended it, since that part of the mouth really doesn't open wide. So what we figured is we're just gonna put like a false jaw, so to kind of extend the mouth and give that illusion that it still has that very big gaping open mouth. So here we're starting to build up on that upper lip of that extended mouth. And here what we're doing is we're already starting to build up the lower jaw of Godzilla. So if this is one of the many many details about this figure. It has this very wide, very big lower jaw. So it's reminiscent of how they did the 1962 Godzilla, or King Goji, if you're familiar with that design. So it's kind of like that. So it's kind of reptilian. It's kind of has a mixture of T-Rex, if you will, in the design. So it's very, very historically. I mean, when we were doing the figure, to be honest, we feel like, we feel like this Godzilla design is very scientific. They looked at some prehistoric animals and they've really incorporated it into this design. At first, just like anyone, I'm really, dumbfounded about what the design is. But the more we worked on it, the more we're spending time trying to conceptualize how we were gonna make the figure, the more that we understood the concept behind why they chose to do such a Godzilla figure. So anyway, this is just a build-up of what will be that massive lower jaw. So basically, we're just putting in some outlines on what that lower jaw will look like eventually. So again, as you may know, this is like the early part of the project, wherein much of the series really hasn't been televised yet. So yeah, a lot of that details actually changed when finally Godzilla Ultima appeared on screen, and finally SH Monster Arts decided to show the world what Godzilla Ultima looks like. So yeah, that's the advantage of having a storyboard to begin with. So anyway, here what we're doing are the lashes, or the the upper portion of Godzilla's eyelids. And then here what we're doing is so that gaping mouth and that gaping lower jaw, we're building up on that already. And then here what we're doing is basically we're making a rough sketch of that spines. So this is what the spines are, how they are made. So they're made one by one. So you could just imagine, since this Godzilla is riddled with spines, so you're gonna see a lot of spine work on this figure. And then here what we're doing is we're basically building up on the upper teeth of Godzilla Ultima. So try not to, so basically the teeth, the rows of teeth on the lower jaw, that would be removed eventually, because we changed the design of that one when we changed the design of the lower jaw later on. So again, the teeth on the lower jaw, you can ignore that for now. What we want to show here is how we're building much of the details on Godzilla's face. So here what we did, so since we have more materials to work with, what we and more storyboard and more pictures to work with, we basically had to redo the teeth. And so here what we're doing basically is we're doing the tonsils, if you will. The tonsils, if you will, of Godzilla Ultima. So that's kind of very much unique to this figure as well. So we saw that detail when SH Monster Art showed much of those details from their figure as well. So we figured, why not incorporate it to our figure as well. And then here what we're doing is we're building up most of the details of the lower jaw, starting with the tongue, and then here we're meticulously sculpting the rows of teeth that Godzilla Ultima has. So if I'm not mistaken, there's kind of like 6 rows of teeth. So yeah, so that's how many details, that's how much detail we're really gonna put in to this figure. So now what we're doing now is basically we're sculpting the final touches on the lower jaw as well, and then putting on most of those 6 rows of teeth. So all of these teeth are one by one sculpted and meticulously sculpted as well. So once we've done all of that, basically we're just putting in the front row of that lower teeth as well. And then so here, after we've done the head, what we're doing now is we're working on the neck of Godzilla Ultima. So on the neck area, the reason why we chose the Godzilla 2003 is because of the neck piece, really, more than anything. So it kind of has the same design as the 2003, except on some of the more detailed, flaps that Godzilla Ultima has. And these are the flaps that we're doing right now. So it's the flaps on the front of the neck as well, on the front of the neck of Godzilla Ultima. So here what we're doing is we're giving a rough sketch on where the flaps will be. We'll give you a view of that one when the camera angle changes. So here you could see, so that's kind of what the flaps will follow. That's kind of the thickness that the flaps will follow. So we decided to put that on the middle first, and then the flaps will be filled up with epoxy once we've put that in place. And then something that you would normally see when we sculpt, we use a bristled paint brush. So yeah, so we use that to put in some more texture on the skin so that it doesn't appear too shiny or too smooth. And then once we have those textures in place, so we're gonna put some, and once we have those textures in place, what's gonna happen is that's the time we're gonna put in the details. So first, we're gonna texturize the skin, and once we have those textures in place, we'll then sculpt the details on the skin. So this is our work being done on the second fold, and we're gonna continue doing this until we reach the end of the neck. So this is how meticulous this figure is. We basically had to resculpt almost all of the skin all over Godzilla's body. So and most of those skin are made of flaps. So we had to put on those flaps one by one. So it's a lot of work, but yeah, it's gonna be worth it in the end. So we did the same thing on the nape, and then here what we're doing is we're basically doing the same sculpt on the shoulders of Godzilla Ultima. So it's kind of like an armor-like, folded armor-like skin. So yeah, so that's what we're trying to do here. So again, after we've sculpted it so that it doesn't look too smooth, we're gonna again run that down with the bristle brush. Finally, after we're happy with the sculpt, and then we'll put in most of the design. So the same thing how we did the neck. So now that we've done the shoulders and the neck, it's now time to put in the details on the spine, on Godzilla's neck, and on Godzilla's shoulders. So here we're following the pattern on where the folds end, and basically that's where we're gonna put those epoxy. And then once we were happy with how it's sculpted, we're gonna put in some details using some sculpting tools as well. And then the same goes with the sides of the neck and running into the shoulders. So Godzilla Ultima also has some spines going on, running through that line between the shoulders and the neck. So again, these spines, they're sculpted one by one. So it's kind of like spears, small spears running through the neck of Godzilla. So now that we've done that, the next part of the sculpt of the build is basically working on the body. So the body of Godzilla Ultima also has a ton of detail going on. So again, just like the neck, it still does have those armor plating folds, and it has kind of sort of like an ab 8-pack 8-pack ab. So that's what we're doing here. Again, much of these details wouldn't be possible if we haven't seen the SH Monster Arts figure, because a lot of the earlier pictures really doesn't have much of those details. So we're kind of thankful that SH Monster Arts released their design, because we knew that they had access to Toho's storyboards and whatnot, so they really had more material to work with. So again, just like how we sculpted the rest of the figure, we're gonna run that down with the bristle brush to put in some texture, and then we're gonna finish off those textures with the lines using our sculpting tools. So here what we're doing is we're drawing some lines on where the figure would have to be to avoid the articulation being hindered because of the sculpt. So we had to make sure to mark those lines so that the figure could still move freely once the sculpt has been done. So that's kind of one of the challenges of working with an action figure, to be honest. So you really have to consider the articulation when you're doing the sculpt. So again, continuing with Godzilla's design are this chiseled, if you will, chiseled abdomen. Then once we have that, we're basically just gonna fill that out with details the same way we did with the other parts of the figure. So yeah, a little meticulous, but we're getting there. So again, sculpting it before we fill it out with details, make sure that it's not hindering the articulation at all. So as you can see here, we're kind of halfway the body already, and yet we're still putting in some more details. So we're basically we basically covered up the whole figure, the whole base figure, with a new set of skin all throughout the body. If I'm not mistaken, even I think the only part of the body that we spared are the hands, if I'm not mistaken. So again, just like how we did the neck area, we're gonna put in some spines on the chest of Godzilla. And then remember we marked this area earlier. So what we're doing now is we're basically removing some material on those marked areas because we need to fill in some details on those areas as well, because the pattern will be different if we don't do that. So what we did is we dremeled basically that portion so it becomes deeper, and then we're gonna fill that out with a new set of epoxy. So once we're done with that, basically we're doing the back now. So we're doing some details similar to that armor plating on the back as well. So once you get the hang of it, really, it's gonna make your work faster, but it's really a lot of work, to be honest. So now we're going on and sculpting the legs and the feet. So here, as you can see, we decided to extend the legs all the way to the upper hip of Godzilla Ultima, and this is because the legs of the 2003 Godzilla, the base figure, isn't really that thick and isn't really that long compared to Godzilla Ultima. So what we did is we kind of extended the leg all the way to the upper waist area of Godzilla. It kind of gives that illusion though, so it still worked well for us. So now what we're doing is we're adding some more details on the legs. So as you may know, this Godzilla design has very thick legs. It's kind of like the thickest legs on any Godzilla design ever. So it's kind of its trademark. So we really cannot not do those thick legs. So here what we're doing is we basically strip the shin with the old skin, because we're gonna replace that. And then finally what we're doing is we're removing each of the toes because we need to rearrange it. So now what we're doing is we're putting on a skeleton on each of those toe so that it will not fall off easily. So what we're doing is we're punching a hole or drilling a hole on each of the toe and where we're gonna place it, and using some super glue and some bendy wire. The bendy wire is basically gonna form the skeleton, and then from that we're just gonna build it up with epoxy to reinforce it. So we've kind of extended the feet because that's how the design is. So this Godzilla design really has some long feet compared to other Godzillas also. And I like how they did the design on the feet really. It's kind of reminiscent of the early raptors or dinosaurs, if you will. So it has kind of that T-Rexy Allosaurus type of feet, wherein there's a dew claw on the back. So reminiscent of dinosaurs really. So this is really so again, the more we do this figure, the more we sculpt it, we get that deeper appreciation of why they chose to make the design this way. So for me, it really grows on you, the design. So finally, after we've attached the toes, so now it's time, and we've sculpted much of the feet at this point already. So what we're doing now is we're finalizing how big and how thick and how long the nails will be. So again, this is really big thanks to SH Monster Arts for providing us more info on what those details look like. Because even in the series, it's really hard to tell how those details look. So here now, what we're doing is we're basically resculpting the arms. So if you know, if you've seen the anime series, the arms of Godzilla Ultima are really thin. So it's reminiscent of what Shin Godzilla looks like, except it's a bit thicker, it's a bit longer, but it's still unproportional with the rest of the body. So again, continuing with their theme of kind of like a dinosaur type, and really scientific on their approach. So that's kind of what we're doing here as well. So you want the arms to be a bit thinner than the rest of the body without making it too thin like Shin Godzilla. And here we've marked the spot on the arm wherein the spines on the arms will be. SH Monster Arts actually did this, but we didn't go that route the same on how they did how they did it, because how SH Monster Arts did it was it's kind of spiraling from the wrist all the way to the arms. And when we looked at some stills from the series, we saw that those spines are actually just one straight line. So we decided to just go on with what we saw from the series as well. So here what we're doing is we're working on Godzilla's tail. So a lot of this detail was inspired by what SH Monster Arts saw as well. What we saw from SH Monster Arts, and it's kind of difficult to see this from any camera angle or any drawing from the series also. So they have like armor platings, but here instead of those rows of plates, so it's kind of like a diamond shape, reminiscent of what alligator or crocodile tails look like. So that's where we drew the inspiration also. So we looked at design from SH Monster Arts and some actual croc tails, and that's kind of our inspiration on how we did the tail here as well. So again, this was challenging because first we have to balance out how heavy the tail will be, because there is still some articulation going on with the tail. So we had to factor in the weight of the tail and the articulation that's gonna be happening on that tail area. So now this is what the tail details look like. And finally, what we're doing here is we're working on the spines. So if you've seen that Godzilla design, the spines are basically the most challenging part of this build. So they have lots of spines, and each of those spines really has a lot of detail, a lot of texture going on. It has that leafy pattern design, if you will. And so that's what we're gonna show you now. So basically what we did is we had to sculpt each of the spine one by one. So some of them we've sculpted separately, and some of the spines that are already attached on the base figure we've reused. So it's a mixture of that. So first, so this is just a rough base sketch or base mold for that spine. So it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to, you know, you could really play with the design on this one. Then finally, once we have that, what we're doing now is we're putting in most of the details on the spine. So remember, this is two parts. So you're gonna do this twice for each spine. So one on the front area, so one on each side. And basically after that, we're gonna put in some of that details inside of the spine. And then here, what we're doing is we're basically resculpting the transitional spines, if you will. So it kind of transitions from the normal spine from Godzilla's head, and then it becomes a dorsal plate eventually as you move towards the back of the figure. So these are kind of what we playfully call transitional spines. And then what we figured is that it would be easier to actually detach those dorsal plates on Godzilla, so that we have more real estate to work with in resculpting. And then so basically that's what we did. So we removed all of the dorsal plates, and then we resculpted those dorsal plates one by one, and then putting on the details. And then at least that gives us an idea on how much more spines that we need to build, how big they are gonna be, and what they're gonna look like when we put them on the figure. So this is how we created each of those spines. So basically we put in a thin layer on the spine, and then we put in the base branch or rib of each spine, and then we put in the details on each of the ribs. So if you're familiar with how to draw a coconut leaf, that's basically how you put in the details on each of the spine, and then you're gonna do that on both sides as well. And here what we're doing is similar to how we did or attached the toes. What we're doing here is we're drilling up some holes, and then we're gonna put in some bendy wire, and then stick in some glue, and do the same on the back of Godzilla. So here we're drilling the holes where the bendy wire is gonna stick in. And before we stick that in, make sure to put some glue so that it adheres to the back first before you resculpt it. So this is basically what the spines will arrange, the new arrangement for those spines. And what we're doing now is, as you can see, there's a gap between the back and each of the spine. So we're gonna fill that out with epoxy and blend those details together. And then for the small spines, we figured since there are already existing spines on Godzilla, so we could build up on those and make the patterns straight on the figure, so no need to remove it and attach it later on. So once we've done that, all the spines on the back and on the tail, so now we're on to painting. So the base coating here is white, and then we put in we use the marker to paint the eyes yellow. So again, so the base color here is white, and then once we have that, we're gonna paint in the details on each of the spine. So it has like a vein, a reddish blackish vein on each of the spine. So that's what we're doing here. So we're mixing a combination of white, of black and red, and then we're gonna dry brush each of the dorsal plate with the grayish color, which is consistent with how we saw it from the series. So on the smaller spines, what we did was we also dry brushed it with white and some black and gray patterns also. So similar with how we did the larger plates. On the nails, we dry brushed it with gray and a hint of yellow also, kind of give it a more natural look. And finally, once we're done painting, all we needed to do is to cover up all of the figure with Mod Podge. So what we're using is a matte Mod Podge, so it doesn't really come out too shiny. So now we're gonna show you a montage of what the final figure looks like. So thank you guys for sticking up with us all throughout this video. Enjoy!